Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We are here today for episode 20 of PODTC. It's August in higher education, which we all know is the busy time of year for a lot of us. So hopefully my guests and I don't sound too stressed out today. We work in the same office, though, so we might be feeling some of the same pressure. Today, I am joined by my supervisor, Ted McKown. He's the Senior Associate Director of Transfer Enrollment here at Kent State University. How are you doing today, Ted?
Good. How are you, Jonathan?
Doing well. Like I said, I think we're stressed out for a lot of the same reasons, being the end of August. And our students started last week. So I know that a lot of schools have them starting this week. So maybe we're ahead of, you know, maybe we're a little less stressed out than some of our counterparts at other colleges. But Ted wanted to come on today and talk about horizontal transfer students, something that we talk in the field a lot about vertical transfer and what we can do for those students. But this growing population of students that might not get the most attention, Ted's been watching out with a keen eye. So we'll get to that. But first, we're going to learn a little bit about Ted. So Ted, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Obviously, I have given away your name and where you work and such, but where you went to school, anything else that you want to share?
Yeah, so I've been around the block a couple of times. I have worked in admissions for 32 years. I've been at a small private institution in Pennsylvania, and I've been here at Kent State for the last 26 years. So yeah, it's been a good career in admissions. I've done just a little bit of everything. 15 years of international. I've done adult recruitment, military, first year, and I've been up to the transfer scene for about the last 12 years now. I live in Kent. I'm a townie. I didn't grow up in Kent, but I live right here in Kent, and I've lived in Kent now for probably 25 years, 25 of the 26 years. So me and my family live here. I have children who have all grown up. They've gone to Kent State, and my family and I, we love Kent. It's home. We have a dog, so yeah, we're both big pet lovers. I know you have a dog and like
Mhm.
six cats or something
Just
in your
two, just
house.
two.
Okay. All right. Okay.
If my wife had her way, I think we'd have at least six cats. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm allergic to cats, so no cats for me, but hypoallergenic dogs, I love them.
Yep. Stephanie's my wife is also allergic to cats, so I don't know why we even have two. I'm just joking. We love cats. Um, so Ted, you kind of talked about more or less where you've been institution-wise. Obviously, you've been at Kent State for a while. You forgot to include that your favorite part of this position at Kent has been to supervise me for the last 4 years, but I'll let that slide. But how did you get in? I mean, obviously, you're working with international students and everything. How did you get into working with transfer students?
Well, honestly, my favorite part is supervising you, Jonathan. So that is a true statement. Actually, our transfer team, we've been really successful. I mean, we've done a really nice job with transfer students, and it's really our team that makes that happen. So, how I got involved with transfer students about 12 years ago, I had the opportunity to um, take a new role here at Kent State and kind of do some new things in the realm of transfer recruitment. I have a marketing background, so a lot of my MO as I have been through admissions is to kind of build strategic plans, but also provide customer service, you know. And Jonathan, you hear me talk a lot about one-to-one marketing, and we do a lot of that in the office, and we call it one-to-one outreach in the admissions world. But that with a blend of high touch marketing, which we really do through our communications plan, is I think that customer piece to make every transfer feel like they've received personalized service from us. That's really what we've tried to do, and kind of meet them where they're at. Now, whether it's a vertical transfer or a horizontal transfer, I mean, honestly, you're servicing that student, right? And so you're trying to help them. You play the role of an advisor almost. We're not advisors. We know that at Kent State, but we are still trying to make sure that students, before they get to us, take credits that are going to apply to that degree that they may be interested in at Kent State. Doesn't matter if they're at a 4-year school or a 2-year school, we're going to provide that same level of service to them. And whether they come to Kent State or not, we have the student's best interest in mind, and we want them to fit in where the best fit is for them.
Yeah, well said. One last thing, more or less, before we get into our deeper conversation. I know you were at the OTC conference this year, and I think it's still fresh enough to ask. How did you enjoy it?
I thought you were going to ask me something else about supervising you, but I thought the OTC conference was maybe the best I've ever been to, and I planned a conference at OTC, so I know what goes into putting all of that together. It's a lot of work. And you and Melissa and Amanda and a whole host of other people really did a nice job. And I really, really like the keynote speaker. So Alfred Herrera, retired from UCLA. I mean, some of the work that he's done with transfers really is applicable to today. And it was a great conference. The breakout sessions, the food, and of course the networking. The reception that you did on Thursday night was amazing. So good job. Did you plan that? Did you plan the reception?
I did the social the night before, yes.
Yeah, that was a really good social. So for those of you out there listening that went to the social, it was a good time, and I really encourage others to come down Thursday night and go to the social. It's a lot of fun, and so spending good time with people that do the same thing you do in a very informal setting, very powerful time too, and a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun together.
I'm going to clip that for the promotion for next year's conference and social.
Perfect.
That was very well said.
Yeah.
All right. Horizontal transfers. Obviously, we've teed that up a couple of times now. How do you define a horizontal transfer student?
So a horizontal transfer is someone that is going to transition to the same level of institution. So if you're at a 2-year institution, you would be transitioning, then transferring to a 2-year institution. And then if you're at a 4-year institution, you would be then transferring into another 4-year institution. So vertical transfer is if you are transferring from a 2-year to a 4-year, or I guess you could go 4-year to a 2-year. And then horizontal is going to be 2 to 2 or 4 to 4. So horizontal transfer. Does that make sense? Did I make that too complicated?
No, you didn't. I agree with you. I just wanted you to explain it and not me.
Okay.
So, a lot of what we do in our work has kind of made us watch this, and maybe a lot of the conversations that we have in conferences and stuff really focuses on the vertical transfer student, but we know that number of horizontal transfer students seems to rise every year, at least in our sector of the state and stuff. So what conditions do you think led to the increase that we're talking about in horizontal transfer students?
Well, and that is an interesting point. We have always received horizontal transfers, and I think there's some key characteristics about transfers, regardless of whether they're vertical or horizontal, that kind of plays into that. Cost is a big factor, right? But also academics and academic preparation. And then there's this whole like socio-geographical component that kind of keeps transfers kind of regionally bound and kind of connected to kind of a regional societal connection, whether it's family or work, or maybe it's lack of transportation. There's a lot of things that could go into that that bucket per se of socio-geographical. So I think that we've always seen horizontal transfers. So for us, we see a lot of horizontal transfers from Northeast Ohio because of that socio-geographical issue. And I bet you if you went to the other 4 years in Northeast Ohio, they would be able to say the same thing, that they see transfers coming from Kent State. So I think it's always existed, but for some reason we're seeing it kind of increasing, not necessarily replacing vertical transfers, but we're seeing an increase of the horizontal transfers. So it is kind of a phenomenon that's happening, that we are seeing an increase in those institutions. For us, horizontal being transfers coming from other 4-year institutions. Why is it on the rise? That is a good question. I think one thing that if you dive deeper into horizontal transfers, you're going to see students who maybe left your region. So, but these students are still kind of have that socio-geographical component to it. And so now they're stepping back into Northeast Ohio, maybe to save money, maybe to support family. There's a number of different things that could play into it, but that there is, I think that that's what we're seeing, is that we're seeing the largest increase of horizontal transfers right now coming from students who are originally from Northeast Ohio, went to high school here, grew up here, stepped out of Northeast Ohio for maybe a semester, maybe a year, and they're transferring back to get closer to home.
I think that's well said. And I think that a lot of that touches on economic conditions. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and I do think, so I mentioned there's kind of these three, I actually think of it as three circles in a Venn diagram. So like academics, cost, and socio-geographical. There's a lot of literature out there. Like if you were to read research about academics and how it impacts transfers, and cost and how it impacts transfers. The socio-geographical, I may have made that term up, I'm not sure, but you see a lot of research about students being regionally bound, and you see a lot of research about they have societal issues. So I've kind of combined that and made like three circles into a Venn diagram. I think that's helpful when we work with transfers to realize the kind of challenges that these students have. So the one circle in the Venn diagram, cost, well, that's impacting another circle. And so there's overlap in that Venn diagram, right? It's where cost meets kind of that socio-geographic issue. So I didn't quite get the amount of scholarship I wanted to XYZ University, which is down south or whatever. And so I went and tried it and I had my experience, but now I'm transferring to get closer to home to save money. So it becomes like that, where those two circles meet, kind of socio-geographical, impacted by cost, how much it costs to attend a 4-year institution.
I think that
So
Venn diagram is a cool way to think of that, and almost sounds like a presentation at a conference at some point.
maybe you'll have to do that.
No, that's all you. So, we're talking about this increase. Do you think that this is a trend that will continue, and why?
Yeah, I think now let's enter another whole nother aspect that doesn't really have to do with friction points that transfers. See, you'll hear the term obstacles, barriers, friction points. That's kind of those three circles in the Venn diagram. Now let's talk about the demographic cliff, right? So from like 2026, fall 2026, that intake of enrollment, all the way to 2037, we're going to see a decline in the number of college-bound students coming from high school. And how do we know this? Well, we can just look at demographical trends, and we can see that it is impacting pretty much the entire United States. There are pockets that are not being impacted by it, but certainly in the Midwest and in the Great Lakes region of the Midwest, and I'm sorry, but Ohio is that. We are impacted by that, and it can be traced back to the 2008 recession, which had a lot to do with the real estate market. But because we were in recession, less people had babies. And so now we're in the situation that we are in. And, we're going to see smaller and smaller high school classes, and smaller and smaller groups of college-bound students that are, whether they're vertical or horizontal students, we're going to see that. So I think that is something that we're going to see moving forward, that we're going to see horizontal transfers increase because there's going to be less students. And let's face it, it could be, let's have a real conversation, Jonathan. And if you want to cut this, you can, but there might be less and less institutions, right? Because there's only so many students to go around. And who will that be? I don't know. I don't know how it's all going to impact everyone. And what's the magic formula to increase your enrollment during this time? This is going to be one of the biggest challenges we've ever experienced in the world of higher education enrollment, is going through this demographic cliff the next 11 years.
Yeah, there's the depressing points that you bring up, and certainly we have a lot of really awesome institutions here in Ohio. And when we have less students, how that'll look when this is all said and done, I don't think anyone can predict exactly how it's going to look like. We can just kind of make our predictions, but it also might be the opportunity that, and I hate to always make it financial, but when an institution needs more students and there's less high school students, they might look more to non-traditional students, and some of building those pieces that makes a non-traditional student able to go to school, maybe more online programs or after hour advising and student services, after hour classes, things of that might be on the rise because it might be like, we're an institution and we're open during banking hours. Well, banking hours might not work for every student. So how do we expand access to more and more students? It's not going to be as easy as having an online program and marketing it in an area that might not be seeing the same demographic concerns that we are, but it might end up being an opportunity for us in the end. And it can be two things at once, right? It will be what you're talking about, but I hope to see some of the good work that I know that transfer people and people who work with non-traditional students, we already know a lot of this stuff, but seeing that come to fruition at some of our institutions might be a positive at the end as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. So it's going to be an interesting an interesting decade working in admissions. So it's exciting. It's a new challenge, I think. I worked in international admissions. I had just built a huge international recruitment plan in August of 2001. And it was approved to move forward, and we started it. And then 9/11 happened. And you want to talk about difficult challenge to recruit students. I was
Yeah.
recruiting international students in 2002, 2003, 2004, et cetera, et cetera. And we found ways to be successful. And I think that we can find ways to recruit students, you know, as we go through the cliff. But
Yep.
it's going to take a lot of creativity and hard work to get there.
Yep. I agree. So, when we're talking about working with these students, what do you feel like are the largest differences working with vertical transfer students versus the horizontal transfer students we've been talking about?
Well, if you think about the differences, and maybe even go back to those circles in the Venn diagram, you might find, that academics are similar, or they might be very different. Horizontal transfers may or may not be more academically prepared to attend your institution. I guess it's, what type of institution are you, and what type of student do you draw? But cost is a big difference, right? When you think about recruiting vertical transfers, what's one of the biggest things we hear from our community college partners about, and I have someone in mind that you and I have worked with for years, and she always told me that there's this big canyon between our institution and Kent State, financial canyon, and we need a bridge to be able to get students to that level, because the cost is so different between vertical, in a vertical transfer situation, from a 2-year to a 4-year. So some of the hard work with a vertical transfer is to figure out how you can create that bridge, right? Cost wise. The horizontal transfer, you don't necessarily have that. And in some cases, your institution might be less than the institution that they're transferring from. You kind of have a similarity in cost, or even a lesser cost. So that kind of works in your favor to recruit horizontal transfers. The sociogeographic piece is interesting, because the students might be in the region, they might be at other institutions at your level that, still in your region, or they may be from your region and have gone to school away from home, and now coming back. So, but I think the big challenge with horizontal transfers is, I would never want to poach a student from an institution like mine. So I'm not going to go to another 4-year institution and begin to recruit students at that institution. But as you know, in our office every day, we have students from other 4-year schools call us and say, hey, I'm thinking about transferring. So then it becomes just servicing those customers at the point of contact. Most of our applications are very stealthy, just like they are on the first year side, right? They really don't want you to know, a whole lot about them. They don't want you to, um, be able to recruit them and call them and text them and email them like we do, all the different, touch points that we have with students. But at the same time, we want to have the ability to really help them understand, if our school, if they've come to us, we want to kind of have a reactive approach that, well, we're interested in you. Let's find out if Kent State is the right fit for you. So I think a lot of it is about fit, and helping the student, really putting on your advisor hat, not thinking like, being a salesperson, but being an advisor, and helping that student understand whether or not the transfer would be right for you. I know that I have talked over the years, I have talked to a number of students from other Ohio publics that are very similar to Kent State, similar in size, similar in research status. similar in program, similar in a lot of different ways. But as we start looking at the credits and what the student has completed and maybe what the requirements are, course sequencing, curriculum rules, even residency requirements for degree programs, things like that, I might say, you know what? It's better off for you to stay at your current institution and complete your degree. And if not, if not that, and you're still, I need to get home, let's see if we can, if there's any way that we can transient some coursework to be able to complete your degree there.
Yep.
And looking for some creative ways to help students in their situation. Sometimes they really need to get closer to home. Usually that's the situation. So if that's the situation and we need to get closer to home, how can we help you do so? And look for some, here's option A, here's option B, here's plan C, here's plan X. It's like, what we have to be creative to be able to help horizontal transfer students, because the nuances are going to be different, right? So because they're most likely trying to get closer to home, and there's a story behind that. There's a situation. Why are you trying to get closer to home? Is it cost? Is there like a family issue? Those are kind of two of the big ones that we see.
Yeah, I think you said a lot of good points in there, because there's certainly things that a horizontal and a vertical transfer student share. They're transferring credit. They want to make sure that they're still on a good degree path. They still want a program that's going to pay out well in the end, that's not going to bury them in debt. Like, there's a lot of the same concerns that I would even say just not transfer students at large obviously have some of the same concerns. And it was a really good point when you brought up, as a horizontal transfer might shift. We'll just talk, we both work at Kent State, so we'll just use them as the example here. But a student might be coming from a 4-year college to us. They've colleged before, they've been at it. So that culture shock, maybe, that a lot of literature and transfer we refer to, might be the transition from 2 to 4 or rural to urban, like the things that we typically think about, as opposed to here, is Kent State the right fit for you? In Northeast Ohio, there are a lot of options to transfer. And there's a lot of great transfer professionals up here that are trying to make them see the same good fit at their institution. So just know, like, there's obviously still competition for these students. And you're right, there's the altruism part of it that you're talking about, is like, is Kent State the right fit for you? If it's not, it might be somewhere else. And,
right.
I think you and I always say, like, a lot of transfer students ask the same 3 questions. The first question is always, do you have my academic program?
Right.
If that's not the case, obviously we might not be the right school for you. But just knowing that there are options for those students out there. So I think that you dove into a lot. The economic piece seems to really be what's kind of sprinkled throughout this whole conversation. And you're right, a lot of students go out of state, come back, or maybe they're originally from Northeast Ohio, the family moved, they still had some sort of connection to Northeast Ohio, and they want to come back. Horizontal transfer students come back to us, or come to us for a lot of different reasons. And I know we talk generally in podcasts, we've got about 30, 40 minutes to cover a pretty nuanced topic. We're obviously not going to cover every little thing that a student can go through. But just, that was a pretty good list of the differences, I would say.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's kind of the end of my formal questions. Is there something that you think I forgot to ask or we missed here?
Let's be honest with one another. I mean, horizontal transfers happen, and no, we don't poach from institution to institution when we're dealing with horizontal transfer students. It's, we wouldn't want to do that. But we know it happens. So let's build relationships, right? I mean, what makes a vertical transfer successful, or a vertical transfer program successful? a lot of it has to do with relationships that we build with key influencers, right? So if you think about a community college that Kent State might be working with, we know all of those people, and we work, hand in hand with those individuals at those institutions. Why not do the same at four-year institutions, right? And say, okay, if we want to have the student's best interest in mind, and we really want to be institutions that are student ready, then let's work across our borders. Let's work across our boundaries. And I think that starts with collegial relationships that work with students uh, during that transitional period, when they have initiated it, not we
Right.
initiate, but they initiate. Let's
Yep.
work together to have the student's best interest in mind.
That's good. And meeting colleagues might be a little easier for us in like enrollment management because there's fairs and we're out on the road. But
Yeah,
quick plug, every year OTC throws a conference that you can meet and be collegial
that's
with all of
social.
these people. And of
Yeah,
course the
come to that
social, yes.
social. Yeah. Are
Thanks
are
for
we gonna do Pins Mechanical again with all that delicious food that you brought?
Hey, thank you for helping me pick that up again. And then
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll have to ask Amanda when she gets there
yeah,
and planning it.
yeah. You're not volunteering to plan the next one either?
No, I'm gonna help with the conference, but that's all the
Okay.
president.
All right. Okay.
All right, Ted. Well, this has been a great conversation. Yeah, thank you for coming on for my, 20th episode. It's already to 20. Hopefully you guys found this.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a fun project. But thank you to everyone who listens, and hopefully you got something out of this conversation. Horizontal transfers are something that we don't really see too much, I don't think, out there in terms of webinars and professional development. So if you have any questions, I'm sure Ted would be happy to answer an email or two. I'm kind of volunteering him, but he's shaking his head right now. You can't see that. So we can
Yeah,
make sure
reach
that
out.
yep, we'll make sure that your questions get to him. But we're going to sign off, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.
Bye.